Yeah, we talked about I don't know if everyone's familiar with code, but it's basically giving like verbal clues, and there's a set of words you're trying to get your team to guess, and a set of words you're trying to get your team to not guess for various reasons. And so we just talked about a lot about the different ways playing it makes you consider the way other people think and other people's experiences to try and figure out what they'll guess based on what you say, and to think about your words, to think about the other words, and just kind of like the more you play, the more complex that thinking becomes for winners and guessers.
We talked a little bit about risk taking too, and that some ways the game encourages you to take risks. Because if you can get your team to guess more words on one turn, you'll do better. But in other ways, it discourages you from taking risks, because if you get something wrong, you could be handing points to your other team or just completely ending the game right away. We were just getting to like the really juicy stuff about developing in-game cognitive habits, and that's what she just mentioned about the more you play, the more you start thinking about this means this means this means this, and you sort of like think out and out and out. Yeah? Okay.
Cool. Other thoughts? Other teams?
We talked about chess. We talked about the fact that they chose to use a war zone as a battlefield of two teams. We talked about the freedom of movement of different players with different abilities. And we talked about the conflict of the values, at least for myself, is that the king and the queen have the most freedom, however, they are the last one to engage the game. So they send all of the simple people to fight for them with limited abilities and limited actions, but they are the first to die or be removed, while the others are more skillful, but they are protected in their own lives. So we talked about the fact that it promotes thinking and taking your time and be mindful of the strategies and trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Not to think, if I will move this way, the other person can react in such a way, and choose your options, re-choosing your options after every move.
And just to share, like, chess is the thing that people have really thought about a lot, and there's dozens of alternate versions of chess that are intended to, promote different values, or the examples of, rather than this hierarchy that you're talking about of maybe a more egalitarian thing, or, what if pawns had more power, or what if it was all pawns, or what if it was the pawns versus, the king and the queen?
Yeah.
What are those kinds of, what's up with the symbolism there? So that, that's it's super interesting.
Thinking about chess also made me think about maybe teaching like a war context, and the different ways in which the different superpowers strategize or play their own game without actual confrontation. So how do we teach that with students, with different levels of power, and where we're gonna have a confrontation, proxy war versus a real confrontation between the two players.
So that's great. I just want to share a couple of words and sort of wrapping up, and then if any of you would like to talk further, I'd be happy to do that. We're supposed to be done now. So my hope is that, talking about all these things together, it helps you to think about games, so that, what does a game mean? What is it saying? Maybe it'll help you in your practice, like when you design games or curriculum, maybe be a little bit more aware of what messages might be in there, because there are definitely notorious examples of games that are misogynist, racist, imperialist, and so on. For example, Settlers of Catan is a really popular game. I love it to pieces. I played it for bunches of weeks with my friends until we got so competitive we actually decided to put it away so it wouldn't damage our friendship. There is a game called Spirit Island that came out a year or so ago that I haven't played yet, but it is a co-op game, and it is sort of pitches itself as the anti-imperialist version of Settlers, because you actually play the natives on the island with the native island spirits, and the settlers are sort of run by this procedural AI, and it is your job to keep the settlers out. And so it's flipping the script and saying, well, settlers, you know, it's a great game, but it does, you know, the game is about competition. Somebody wins. There's no cooperation, and the winner is the person who colonizes best, who takes over the island, and there's no thought to what's there before. You know, you're taking the rocks, the lumber, and so on, without thought for consequences of your industry and your actions. And some games are definitely harder than others. You know, the more abstract you get, the fewer graphics, fewer sounds, the harder it is to kind of figure out what's in it. And there are things that are maybe, you know, so abstract they don't particularly have this kind of like, you know, social, emotional kind of content to them. But you know, even something as simple as tic-tac-toe, it's competitive, right? One person wins, or the other person wins, or there's a draw. There's no group win. And